Welcome to this Bike World used Ducati Scrambler buyer's guide. So we're about 4 years into the life cycle of the original Scrambler 800. You're looking at the full throttle example here. We were actually out on the press launch back in December 2014 in California. The bike has been nothing but a hit. Kind of instant success for Ducati. They tapped straight into the market at exactly the right time, and they were able to saturate the market with these sweet little bikes on sweet little PCP deals. When this first came out, you could ride one of these for about the same price as an Oyster card, 18, 90 quid a month. There's no better way to commute if you've got the option of taking the train and standing with loads of sweaty dudes, or spending 90 quid a month and looking like the Fonz on one of these. You're going to go for one of these every single time. What we're going to do is walk and talk our way through some of the issues, and there aren't really any with these bikes at all, but just highlight some of the things that you should think about if you're in the market for a used Scrambler. So first off, let's think about the kind of person that you're going to be buying this bike from. Even if it's in a dealership like this one, MM Motorcycles down in Tooting in South London, this bike will have started by being owned by somebody who's probably new to motorbikes. So what that means is they might not necessarily understand what lubing a chain means. So one of the things you need to think about with these apparently is tight spots on the chain. You think it's a simple thing if you've been riding for years. If you haven't, you might trip over and forget to check the chain has been lubed, and before you know it, it's cost you a chain and sprockets. The same goes for these tyres. The Pirelli MT60 RS tyres on these, kind of chunky, wet weather style, semi-enduro, off-road, nearly off-road friendly tyre. It's a town bike, so it's only being ridden in town. These tyres, because of the squishy soft compound, they do square off quite easily. This bike, it's a common fault with the dash that they need to be reset when they're going for a service. Sometimes the dashes flash. I think it's the odometer. It doesn't read correctly, flashes every now and then, pisses owners off. They take it back to the dealer. There is like a plug-in that they do, reset the code, do some kind of electric magic, all good. Chances are, again, because of the style and nature of this bike, it's going to have maybe had a go at trying to modify it and style it up. When we say style it up, what we actually mean is f the thing up. Homemade mods for bikes like these just doesn't work. What you're looking for are proper parts. You know, it's got Rizoma written on it. You know you're probably in the right area and you're buying the right kind of bike. The problem that we've got with bikes like this is simple things like comes with LED lights. So people think that they'll start by upgrading the LED light, fit a different kind of tint or a different style of light to this very simple system, and that then starts a little chain reaction of crap modifying. Mechanically, there isn't a great deal to worry about. It's a really, really simple bike. Starting at the front, it's only got a single disc. So if you're buying this bike from a young guy who maybe just passed his test, thinks he's Valentino, Lorenzo, Rossi Marquez, just check that the disc isn't warped. Because it is only a single disc setup, quite easy to override them, overheat that front disc, it starts to warp. You're a couple of hundred quid in on having the disc replaced. Moving back from there to the motor, remember it's from a monster, 802cc, very, very simple, 75 horsepower, 50 pounds-foot of torque. The simplicity is the key with these bikes. That's why people love them as much as they do. In terms of service schedule and service cycle, this bike's due a service at 7,500 miles when the valve clearances will be checked. And we've been told that you must expect for them to need a shim or two. So don't be surprised if you're at the 7,500 mile service and your man says, oh, you've got to pay a little bit extra for a shim. It is what it is with these bikes. The cam belts don't need doing until 15,000 miles, but what we've had recommended to us is what we're telling you, which is at 7,500 miles when you're having the valves done, it makes sense because they're that far into the motor to stick some belts on it at 7,500 miles as well. If you can remember on our original launch video, one of the issues that I had with this bike was there was no performance parts. There was nothing really that you could add to this bike to make it faster. All you could do was add to it to make it look cooler. So on the subject of looking cool, remember you can take your pick from 4 800cc Scramblers in that sector of the Scrambler range. Classic, Icon, Urban Enduro and Full Throttle, which is what this one is here. So if you've seen the previous used reviews that we've done with 899 Panigale and Tiger 800, we're kind of sticking to this principle of finding a used version of a bike that we've recently ridden the new one on. And the Scrambler 1100 that we rode a couple of weeks ago in Portugal is the reason why we're stood in South London talking to you about used 800s. So sticking with that expanding Ducati Scrambler range, there's also the 62. It has neither a 600 engine nor 2 engines, it's a 400. But unfortunately for Ducati, they priced it too high, we think. It was only about 500 quid less than the list price for a brand new one of these. And for that reason, they're like hen's teeth. You just don't see many Scrambler 62s out there in the used market. There's also the Desert Sled. That's probably my favorite bike across the range. Styled by a different guy, the guy that styled and designed the Scrambler 1100 that we rode recently. It just looks cooler. It looks like an old XT Yamaha. That's a good thing. There's also the Scrambler Cafe Racer, which for me is at odds with itself. A Scrambler that's a Cafe Racer, not quite sure how that works, but it has clip-ons, a little bit more of an extreme riding style and a different look to it, but remember, underneath it's exactly the same as the bike that we're looking at here. This Scrambler Full Throttle is on a 65 plate. It's got just on 3,000 miles, 3,200 miles I think. It's got the nice little Termagoni pipes. It's ready to ride. It will stand you in at £6,995 from the good guys here at mmmotorcycles.london. So one thing that's pleased me coming back and looking at this bike is the fact that, you know, it's a good few years old now, 3 years old, it's done a couple of thousand miles. Little bits and pieces still look as fresh as they did when these bikes were brand new on the press launch back in 2014. Switchgear still feels tight, hasn't lost any of its shine. It's matte finish, but what I'm saying, it still looks like it did when it was brand new. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's about it. This bike's 3.5, 4 years old, looks as fresh as the day it rolled off the factory floor. And I dare say in 5 or 6 years' time, it will still look and feel as fresh as it does today. So as with our other used reviews, if you've got one of these bikes at home and you know that there's an issue with it or something that people should think about that we haven't mentioned, feel free to stick it in the comments section below.